In my past life, I married a cripple. He was handsome, but utterly useless. Following him, I endured my elder sister's mockery for half my life. Yet the cripple showed no ambition. No matter how I scolded him, he'd only cook a feast to placate my anger. Who cares about a few bites to eat? I want to be a noble lady, reborn. I resolved to escape my wretched fate and climb a higher branch. The day my father betrothed me to the cripple, I was about to refuse when he spoke first. Standing in the wind, his white robes gleaming like snow, his expression somber. "Thank you for your kindness, uncle, but this junior already has someone in his heart. In my past life, my daily routine was eating, shopping, and berating the cripple. The cripple was as beautiful as a fallen immortal, the legitimate son of a distinguished family, though his legs were weak, causing him to limp as he walked. Others avoided the topic, afraid to mention it in his presence. Only I insisted on pointing at his nose and calling him a cripple. Even when I called him a cripple time and again, he never got angry, always just smiled. I said, "Cripple, what are you laughing at?" The cripple replied, "I see joy in your heart, madam, and I cannot help but smile." I retorted, "What good are you, anyway?" The cripple said, "I cook delicious meals." I said, "My brother-in-law has been promoted to a third-rank official. Did you know?" The cripple thought for a moment, then pointed to a roadside stall. "This bracelet is lovely, madam. Would you like to try it on?" I was furious, stamping my foot and cursing him. Lame man, dead lame man." The lame man pressed close, hugging me and laughing. My dear wife, my wonderful wife." He didn't even have a temper, a real softy. A useless good for nothing. I cried out loud to the heavens. Why must my life be so bitter? I refused to accept this. Visiting my parents, my elder sister paraded her newly promoted husband beside her, sneering. "So my brother-in-law has achieved fame now." The cripple actually looked proud, grinning. "Yes, my cooking is now ranked #1 in the capital." How humiliating. Pfft. I shook him off and walked away. But the cripple, oblivious to my anger, trailed after me like glue. "My dear, your hairpin is askew. Let me adjust it for you. If you have time to fix my hairpin, why not earn an official title to bring me honor? What good is marrying you anyway?" The cripple just chuckled. "Marry me and you'll eat well every meal. Who cares about your food? I want to be a noble lady." The cripple fell silent. Useless good for nothing. Why am I so unlucky? This is infuriating. I can't even swallow my food. How did I die again? Forgot. I bet it was from being driven mad by that cripple. Thankfully, heaven has eyes. One blink, and am back at 16 before I was betrothed to that cripple. I bounced off the bed in joy. Screw that cripple marrying a concubine's daughter. This time, am not marrying that dead cripple. They'll rewrite my fate and outshine that so-called noble lady, my elder sister. The mansion buzzed with excitement, a row of shawms blaring in festive celebration. It was my father's promotion banquet, a farewell feast to thank his guests. In my past life, it was at this very banquet that my father betrothed me to the cripple. Back then, I saw he was handsome and came from a decent family. My head went hazy, and I agreed. Little did I know he'd be all show and no substance. He never held a single official post until his death, leaving me to endure my elder sister's mockery for over a decade. This lifetime, I won't fall for that trap again. My mother was oppressed by the main wife her entire life. After giving birth to me, she was crushed by my elder sister for another lifetime. My child must never live like me. Always second best. Tonight's banquet gathers many sons of noble families. I must seize my chance. I scrambled to my feet, sat before the bronze mirror, plucked a yellow flower to cover the bump on my forehead, then carefully drew my brows, applied makeup, and smoothed my robes. Gazing at my reflection, my spirits soared. Just you wait, it'll charm those young masters off their feet. Once ready, I stepped out the door, feeling utterly delighted. But then, I happened to cross paths with my elder sister. She wore a pink gown, looking as delicate as a flower. Spotting me, she twisted her lips into a smirk. I hear someone took a tumble earlier and bumped their forehead. TSK TSK. 16 years old and still falling flat on your face. My advice: stay home. Save yourself the embarrassment of face planting at the banquet and making a spectacle for the honored guests. She was always like this. Seeing me meant she had to take a jab, backed by her status as the eldest lattice biological daughter. She acted as if she owned the place. Seeing her smug expression, I didn't get angry. I just said, one word at a time, "You're infertile." My elder sister's face turned deathly pale. Xie Huizhou, what nonsense are you spouting? She trembled with rage, panic hidden in her eyes. That was because I struck her deepest wound. It wasn't until 10 years after our marriage that I learned the truth. Xie Huizhou had fallen into the river one winter at 15, her body severely damaged, leaving her unable to bear children. This had always been a secret. Had she not gone 10 years without conceiving after marrying my brother-in-law, seeking doctors and remedies everywhere, I would never have known. Rarely did I get the upper hand over her, and this victory felt incredibly sweet. I wanted to add a few more jabs, but seeing her eyes redden, I feared another provocation might drive her to jump into the river. So I held my tongue. I was just saying, why get so worked up? Pfft. Feeling rather bored, I swayed my hips and walked away. Guests streamed into the front courtyard. No sooner had I arrived than several familiar young ladies came to greet me. I exchanged pleasantries with them while scanning the room. The young gentlemen gathered here today would all be powerful figures in 5th years. I need only choose one, capture his heart, and my future riches and prestige would be limitless. Lost in thought, my gaze drifted toward the water pavilion. Strange, where was the cripple? In my past life, had been there, when I slipped and nearly fell into the water. Had reached out to steady me. Now, the pavilion stood empty, only a solitary crabapple tree blooming in the distance. Huizhou, what's wrong? My sister-in-arms asked. Snapping back to reality, I shook my head quickly. Nothing. Enough. Enough. Why dwell on that damned cripple? Since I've been given another chance, am determined to live differently. No more entanglement with him. His absence today, perhaps it's fate. It's windy out here. Let me take you inside. I gathered my spirits, tugging my sister along to find a quieter spot to talk. Turning my head, I collided with a man in a green robe. He looked up, saw us, and hurriedly bowed his hands in apology. I paused, staring intently. Wasn't this Xie Huizhou's future husband? My eyes lit up. And brother-in-law. Nearly slipped out, but I managed to hold back. Aw, it's nothing. Mr. Su, we were the ones who bumped into Yue, should be the ones apologizing. The more I looked at Su Qingfeng, the more unfamiliar he seemed. In my memory, he was a stiff, serious man in his 30s. This refined, elegant young man before me was someone I'd never seen before. Su Qingfeng stopped, looking at me with a hint of surprise. You recognize me, young lady? Recognize? More like I've seen you every family banquet since. Xie Huizhou would always parade around with you, arm in arm, showing me off. I used to hope he'd meet an untimely end. I gave an awkward laugh and changed the subject. I just heard someone call you that. By the way, where are you headed? Mr. Su. Ah, I see. Su Qingfeng nodded, then continued calmly. I lost my fan and was searching for it when I inadvertently bumped into several people. Looking for a fan. My eyes narrowed. If memory serves, in my previous life, Su Qingfeng met Xie Huizhou while searching for his fan and fell for her at first sight. A year later, after passing the imperial examinations, he came to propose marriage in grand style. After marrying him, Qing Huangbi was showered with his adoration. Later, as he rose through the ranks, he secured her the title of imperial consort. But he doesn't even know her yet. If I step in now, wouldn't I be the one destined to become imperial consort? I looked up at him, weighing the options. Ultimately, it felt wrong. I'd called him brother-in-law my entire life. I simply couldn't bring myself to harm him. But if I won't have him, then neither should Qing Huangbi. I blinked and declared with great solemnity, "A fan. I think I just heard someone mention finding a fan. Over there. Go ask someone." I pointed in a random direction. "Really? Thank you, young lady. I'm deeply grateful." Su Qingfeng bowed his hands in joyful thanks and dashed off in the direction I'd pointed. Not long after he left, Qing Huangbi emerged through the moon gate. Her face was as dark as charcoal. The little maid trailed behind at a respectful distance. Not daring to speak, I waved my handkerchief at her with a smile. "Sister, you're here. Your complexion looks awful. You're not still mad at me, are you?" Qing Huangbi froze upon seeing me, clenched her teeth, and turned away. She strode off as if avoiding a plague, her pace quickening. Watching her retreating figure, my lips curled into a wide grin. "TSK. Sister, your husband's flown away." After the banquet began, I sat behind Qing Huangbi, observing the male guests across the hall. The capital of Jin was open-minded, though men and women sat apart. No curtains separated them as in other places. A slight glance upward revealed everything clearly. I silently assessed them. The man in dark robes across from me was Pei Jing, eldest son of the loyal and valiant marquis. In 10 years, he would inherit the title, but Pei Jing was proud, likely wouldn't notice me. Shinrumo and Zhao He, however, both seemed kind and gentlemen destined to become pillars of the imperial court. "Huizhou, where have you been?" Lost in thought, I suddenly heard someone call Xie Huizhou's name. Startled, I lifted my gaze. What met my eyes was a sea of lonely white. Xie Huizhou stood at the doorway, his expression serene, devoid of sorrow or joy. "My nephew arrived late. Please forgive me, uncle. I offer my congratulations on your family's blessings and the return of your radiance." He bowed slightly, his bearing so distinguished it made one forget he was a cripple. Only when he lifted his foot under everyone's gaze, limping into the main hall, did the image of an immortal shatter. In its place stood a pitiable cripple, like a peerless masterpiece, torn to shreds piece by piece. The male guests turned their gaze to Xie Huizhou. Every emotion flashed before my eyes. Regret, pity, schadenfreude. They lamented that a prodigy had fallen and crippled his leg, yet secretly rejoiced that he now fell short of their own stature. Behind me, a woman murmured softly, "Xie Huizhou is truly handsome." The speaker was immediately mocked. "What? You fancy that cripple? Why not marry him then? You could have a little cripple of your own someday." "Huh," the woman, flustered and angry, retorted. "How rude. I was just saying. My father would never let me marry a cripple. Though crippled, he was still the eldest grandson of the Grand Tutor. How dare they mock him? Besides, Xie Huizhou's leg was crippled when he fell from a horse at 10. How could he possibly father a little cripple? It's you lot, ugly as sin. Who'll surely breed a brood of freaks." A surge of unnamed fury shot through me, and I nearly grabbed a rice bowl to smash it across their faces. My hand touched the bowl, then pulled back. The Xie Huizhou of today had nothing to do with me. Why should I care about him? Reborn into this life, each of us has our own destiny. I should just mind my own business. I lowered my head, propping my hands on my forehead to shield my face. I refused to look at anything, silently stirring the rice in my bowl. Vaguely, I sensed a gaze upon me. I looked up, but no one was watching. Xie Huizhou passed before me without pausing, leaving only a faint scent of cedar. The breeze carried it away, vanishing without a trace. He walked over and sat beside Su Qingfeng. Su Qingfeng smiled at him. and he returned the gesture with a slight curve of his lips. Yet his eyes remained still, like a moon hanging solitary on a branch. Fearing he might notice if I stared too long, I quickly lowered my head and began shoveling food into my mouth. Before long, everything began unfolding in the direction of my past life. My father struck up a conversation with Xie Huizhou, his words brimming with satisfaction. Then came the question, Huizhou is of marriageable age now. Have you settled your future? If not, perhaps I could take the liberty today and arrange. This moment had finally arrived. My heart raced. I prepared to rise and refuse, ready with the excuses I'd rehearsed long ago. But Xie Huizhou stood before me. Uncle, he said. Turning to my father, he bowed deeply. Thank you for your kindness, uncle, but this junior already has someone in his heart. I dare not trouble you further. A sudden breeze swept in, carrying the chill of spring. I stared at him, momentarily stunned. He was supposed to agree. Could it be that reborn into this life? Everything had changed. Indeed, he hadn't appeared at the water pavilion today, and he was so late. Piece by piece, everything was already vastly different from my previous life. So, it wouldn't be strange at all if he had fallen for another woman before this. I sat silently, a sharp pang of pain tugging at some hidden place within me. How peculiar. How peculiar. What has come over me? I patted my chest, forcing down that strange sensation. Then relief washed over me. Thankfully, Xie Huizhou already had another in his heart. This ended things so easily, sparing me much trouble. Xie Huizhou didn't name the woman he favored, nor did my father inquire. But since Head made his feelings clear, my father couldn't very well keep pushing the subject. The matter was dropped. An hour later, the banquet ended. Guests took their leave one by one, departing in groups. Under the pretense of seeing someone off, I slipped out among them. Quietly, I drew the handkerchief from my sleeve, ready to toss it out and find someone destined to catch it. Whoever picked it up would give me an opening to speak. Once we started talking, the rest would be easy, right? Groups of young noblemen strolled through the gardens, each a future pillar of the state. The choices were dizzying. After much deliberation, I settled on Shinrumo. He was destined to become the crown prince's tutor, a man of gentle nature. Later, he married a common fishmonger from the marketplace who couldn't even read a single character. Clearly, he didn't care about a woman's background or her education. He was the perfect choice. I looked and looked again, utterly satisfied, ready to toss the handkerchief. Suddenly, I heard the women ahead chattering excitedly. The jade-faced gentleman. Look. It's the jade-faced gentleman. Ah, it really was him. He had returned to the capital. So handsome, I might faint. What jade-faced gentleman? I tiptoed to look and indeed saw a tall, imposing figure. But before I could see his face, a sudden spring breeze caught my handkerchief. It slipped from my grasp and flew straight toward him, landing squarely over his face. The clamor stopped abruptly. Everyone stared at him in shock. Moments later, the jade-faced gentleman reached up, removed the handkerchief from his face, glanced at it, and curved his lips. His eyes flickered with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was it amusement or annoyance? Could it be that this gentleman is so unattractive that he offends someone's eyes? I recognized him instantly, my heart pounding like a drum. Wasn't this Xiaosheng, the future chancellor? In his youth, he was known as the jade-faced gentleman. No one had seen where the handkerchief had blown from, and they all turned back. Whose handkerchief is this? How outrageous! I dared not admit it, glancing around guiltily as I joined the chorus. Whose handkerchief? Whose is it? Come forward. Naturally, no one responded. The crowd's voices grew quieter and quieter, the atmosphere becoming unbearably awkward. Xiaosheng glanced at the crowd and let out a derisive snort. No one claims it. It seems the spring breeze has gifted it to this lord. Since that is the case, I shall accept it. With that, he tossed the handkerchief to the guard behind him. He had provided an easy way out, showing no desire to pursue the matter. Those present quickly laughed it off. Sweeping the incident under the rug, my father hurried over from behind, too flustered to wipe his sweat, and ushered him inside. Though an elder himself, he was deferential before Xiaosheng. After all, having the sole heir of the Yan family personally come to offer congratulations was already a great show of favor. I watched them walk away, then silently pulled a fresh handkerchief from my sleeve. Fortunately, I had a backup plan, ensuring my scheme wouldn't be derailed. Sister Qin, wait. I made up an excuse and dashed past Shinrumo, the handkerchief from my sleeve deftly landing at his feet. I quickly turned back, feigning surprise. Oh my! Before I could finish, Shinrumo had already stepped on it. He chatted animatedly with those beside him, oblivious to both the handkerchief and my presence. Fumes practically rose from my temples. What on earth were they talking about? Couldn't they see the gorgeous woman right in front of them? Bending down, I picked up the handkerchief, now blackened and crumpled, inwardly cursing them all. But when I looked up, I met a pair of cold, clear eyes and froze instantly. Xie Huizhou stood before me. That single moment of pause felt like an eternity. Yet he only glanced at me. Not a single unnecessary look. The man who once held me in his heart now treated me like a stranger on the street. He lowered his gaze, politely averted his eyes, and walked toward the door. My heart tightened for a moment. In the end, I only clenched the handkerchief in my hand. Not turning back, Qin Yue ran over. Huizhou, what did you call me for just now? I lifted my gaze, regaining my composure. I just wanted to ask if you could come pick me up for the flower festival the day after tomorrow. You know the First Lady won't prepare a carriage for me. I thought it was such a big deal. You little brat. I would have come to pick you up even if you hadn't asked. She pinched my cheek. I smiled, feeling much better. Today's plan to lose the handkerchief had failed. But it didn't matter much. The flower festival was the day after tomorrow. I'd have another chance. Besides, I hadn't come away empty-handed. At least I'd managed to break up Su Qingfeng and Qinghuanbi. In this lifetime, no one would ever pamper Qinghuanbi again, or secure her an imperial decree of nobility. She'd never be able to flaunt it in my face again. The thought filled me with renewed vigor. As night fell, just as I was about to sleep, someone entered my room, announcing the First Lady wished to see me. My heart raced with a bad feeling. But I had no choice but to go. Once in the first lattice chambers, she dismissed everyone. The door slammed shut, and without a word, she struck me across the face. How dare you have the audacity to bully my daughter? I fell to the floor, a metallic sweet taste of blood seeping from the corner of my mouth. Dazed, I looked up at her. Mother, mother, don't call me mother. You disgust me just like your little mistress. She grabbed my face and snarled. Who told you about Qinghuanbi's illness? I froze, finally understanding. Her sudden outburst meant Qinghuanbi had reported me. Knowing the reason, I calmed down. What could she do to me? Just slap me a few times, yell at me, make me kneel for a few days. I lowered my eyes, as I had done countless times before showing weakness, admitting fault, to avoid further suffering. Mother, I was only playing with sister. It wasn't intentional. Please forgive me. Another vicious slap. I don't care how much you know. From now on, if you dare utter another word against Huanbi, I'll tear your mouth to shreds. Servants, throw her into the ancestral hall. Copy the admonitions for women 100 times. No food until it's finished. The door slammed open. 2 old maids grabbed me and dragged me toward the ancestral hall. At the shrine's entrance, I saw Qinghuanbi, terrified, her eyes red. She protested. Huizhou, I didn't tell mother. I swear I didn't. Her maid sobbed behind her, her body shaking. Yes, It was me who told the eldest mistress. I saw the eldest miss being bullied. And in my anger, master and servant were two sides of the same coin. Who told the tale made no difference. I found it all so pointless and looked away, unwilling to watch them. Two matrons tossed me onto the floor, hurled a pile of papers at me, and slammed the door shut. Slowly, I sat down and took up the brush to copy the admonitions to women. The chill of early spring seeped up through the floorboards, freezing my hands and feet. Yet I felt no resentment, no hatred. The lady would fall gravely ill and die within a year of my marriage. There was no point in resenting someone who would soon be dead. I only wished to leave this household as soon as possible. It took me 2 days to copy the admonitions for women. And I still hadn't finished. Qing Huanbi had also been punished by copying the admonitions for women. I remembered how she had cursed under her breath while copying, saying this text had caused no end of harm. Fortunately, I knew few characters and understood nothing of its teachings. So anger never arose. Yet hunger proved relentless. By the second night, I drifted into a daze, overcome by uncontrollable drowsiness. I don't recall when I fell asleep. When I woke, I discovered I'd nearly finished copying it overnight. The characters lived a bit strange like mine, yet somehow more elegant. After staring at them for a while, I thought it must be because I'd written in a daze last night, unaware of fatigue. And my handwriting had improved as I wrote. It seemed I possessed some talent after all. If only I could have had a father's guidance and a tutor's instruction from childhood. Like Qing Huanbi, perhaps I too could become a talented scholar. I sighed and patiently completed the final copy. The first thing I did upon leaving was seek out Shinrumo. My personal maid had gone out to inquire and told me Shinrumo had gone to Guanhe Pavilion today to play chess with someone. Without a moment's delay, I set off alone. Unlike other young ladies blessed with fortune, where parents decide everything for them even if not born to the main wife, a concubine would still scheme on their behalf. I could only fight for what I wanted myself. Having been punished with kneeling the previous 2 days and thus missing the flower festival, I had no choice but to devise another plan. Upon reaching Guanhe Pavilion, I located the private room the maid had mentioned. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door, intending to feign mistaken identity to approach Shinrumo. The door swung wide, and the room was filled with the scent of sandalwood incense. Seated in the center of the elegant chamber were 2 figures. One was not Shinrumu. The other was not Shinrumu either. The jade-faced gentleman. My mind went blank for a moment. Before the tea table, Xiaosheng and his guard stared at me in astonishment. You. Xiaosheng focused intently. In that instant, I felt as though I could see through his eyes, witnessing a storm raging within his mind. Soon, he seemed to find an answer, offering a resigned smile. You do possess some skill. I came to Guanhe Tower today without telling anyone. Yet you knew. What kind of talk is that? As if I were following him, I hurried to explain. I merely took a wrong turn. I did not mean to disturb you. My lord, please forgive me. Xiaosheng chuckled lightly. Such excuses, this lord has heard them too often. They hold no novelty. I was confused. My lord, what do you mean by that? Xiaosheng rose, his posture relaxed and dashing. He tapped his fan against his palm, a smile in his eyes and brows, as if he had seen through my little trick, a hint of satisfaction in his expression. Why beat around the bush? That day, I saw it clearly, the handkerchief. It was yours. My expression froze, noticing my reaction. His tone grew more certain as he continued unprompted. You admire this lord and used such methods to catch my attention. Today, you sought me out in my chambers quite earnest. I must say, it's not your fault. What woman who's met this lord hasn't lost her heart? However, I must remind you, countless women wish to marry me. You'll be ranked. He tapped his forehead with his fan, as if deep in thought. Then he smiled faintly. 61st. I finally understood his meaning. In his eyes, I was already nothing more than a woman obsessed with him. One had stopped at nothing to get close. I admit my conduct isn't exactly exemplary, but others can't slander me with deeds I never committed or desires I never harbored. So I couldn't hold back and snapped. "You're sick." Xiaosheng looked at me in surprise. "You dare insult this lord?" After a moment, he laughed again. "Amusing," one point added. "You're now 59th. My lord. You." I pressed my hand to my forehead. A bitter smile on my lips. I recall from my past life that Xiaosheng never married. I'd always wondered why, with his striking looks and promising career, remained alone. Now I see it was his mind that was flawed. Such a beauty. Such a waste. I won't compete with the other ladies. My lord. Forget me. I curtsied to take my leave, fearing he might chase after me, and hurried away. Descending the stairs, I happened to see Xie Huizhou boarding a carriage and departing. Missed him again, standing on the street corner. I felt a pang of disappointment. Missing him time and again. Could it be that Xie Huizhou and I simply weren't meant to be? Gazing in the direction had vanished. I felt utterly at a loss. Suddenly, my father's voice came from behind. "Huizhou," startled. I turned to see him standing beside the Xie family carriage. Who else was inside? Xie Huizhou, or the old patriarch? As the carriage drew near, my father leaned out and asked, "What are you doing here?" "Buying rouge." "Why are you alone? Where's Xie?" Mother called Xie to do some chores. I peered through the gap but saw nothing inside. My father nodded. "It's getting late. Come back with me." He leaned halfway out the front door, reaching out to pull me up. I hesitated. My father and I had always been distant. He and the First Lady had been childhood sweethearts. Yet when she was with child, he secretly took my stepmother and fathered me. The First Lady was furious, and he dared not defend us. He merely gave us a dilapidated room and left us to fend for ourselves. It wasn't until I was 9, after my stepmother died of illness, that he finally brought me back. After entering the mansion, the first wife despised my lack of refinement, beating and scolding me at the slightest provocation. He never once defended me. Only in front of outsiders would he feign kindness, putting on a show for others. I stared at my father's hand. In the end, I merely grabbed his sleeve and climbed up. The carriage door opened. Seated on the left was indeed Xie Huizhou. His expression was cool and distant. Upon seeing me, he merely gave a slight nod and said, "Miss Cheng." The air froze for a moment. My father explained. "I was handling a case in the outskirts of the capital when our carriage sank into the mud. Fortunately, Xie Huizhou happened to pass by, and that's how I managed to return." I nodded and said to Xie Huizhou, "Thank you." Then I sat down beside my father. The carriage rocked. Yet the three of us found no words to speak. After a while, my father asked Xie Huizhou, "This spring, His Majesty will reopen the imperial examinations. Young Master Xie, are you truly not going?" Xie Huizhou respectfully replied, "Yes. This junior has no intention of passing the exams and entering officialdom for the time being." "What a pity." My father sighed. The rest of his words remained unsaid, but I knew what he meant. Xie Huizhou's grandfather had held a first-rank official position, and his father was now a key minister in the court. The Xie family could have risen even higher, but Xie Huizhou showed no ambition. With him, the family's influence had waned. In my previous life, I'd heard this remark directed at Xie Huizhou so many times I could recite it by heart. Xie Huizhou pressed his lips together in a faint smile. Saying nothing, he simply gazed out the carriage window, his expression distant. I knew he was unambitious, yet I couldn't help but say, "Xiaolang, your talents are extraordinary. It's truly a shame to waste them in the marketplace." Xie Huizhou turned to look at me upon hearing this and asked politely, "What do you mean by that?" "Miss Cheng," I replied. "A true man should strive for official rank and make his mark." Though Xiaolang is sheltered by his family's prestige, the elders of the Xie household are growing old. They cannot protect you forever. Doesn't Xiaosheng have someone he cares for? Without official rank. How could he protect her if misfortune struck? Besides, what woman doesn't hope her husband will achieve distinction and make his mark? If Xiaosheng himself doesn't care, how can he know she doesn't? Or that her parents don't? If Xiaosheng truly cherishes her, he must consider this carefully. Xie Huizhou stared at me, his gaze unfocused. After a moment, he smiled faintly, as if something had clicked. Miss Qing speaks wisely. I shall give this serious thought. I nodded. At least I had said what needed to be said. I hoped Xie Huizhou might change his ways this lifetime. Returning to the Qing residence, I was about to head to my quarters when I saw several maids from Qinghua's chambers carrying stacks of items inside. Among them were brocades and silks even from a distance. They clearly weren't ordinary goods. Intrigued, I stopped one of the maids to ask. The girl beamed as she replied, "Second young miss. You see, the other day our eldest young miss found the fan belonging to young Marquis Pei of the loyal and valiant Marquis 8. It was just a small favor, but young Marquis Pei insisted on thanking her. These past few days, he's sent so many gifts already." With that, the maid sauntered off, clearly delighted, staring at those stacks of treasures. I was furious enough to smoke from every orifice. I broke up Chen Huanbi and Su Qingfeng, only for some young marquis to pop up. A fan. A fan. I've been stabbed in the back. Distraught, I couldn't eat or sleep, lying awake until dawn. Early the next morning, I went out alone and found Xiaosheng. "My dear, how can I become the number one in your heart?" Returning to the Qing residence, I spotted Qing Huanbi from afar. She tried to speak to me, but I didn't give her the chance, walking swiftly away. In these 2 lifetimes, I've become her sworn rival. As the saying goes, when a woman pursues a man, it's like a thin veil. Though Xiaosheng was a notorious playboy, I believed that if I treated him well, given enough time, he would eventually fall under my spell. From then on, gifts from the loyal and valiant Marquis mansion poured in steadily, and I steadily showered Xiaosheng with gifts. He loved chess, so I often visited Guanhe Tower to run into him and play a game. At first, it was just for fun. I'd praise him lavishly for every finger twitch or chair shift, making him float with pride, his face glowing. But as we played more, I kept losing. My competitive spirit kicked in, and I'd sneakily move his pieces when he wasn't looking. When he caught me, he gritted his teeth in fury. Chess character reflects one's true character. How could you stoop so low? Penalty points. Penalty points or not. When I returned to Guanhe Tower a couple days later, had already set up the chessboard, waiting for me. Some time passed, and he hosted a literary gathering at the Yan residence, sending me an invitation. I had always thought his claim that dozens of young ladies wished to marry him was mere bluster. Only upon arriving at the Yan residence did I realize he hadn't lied at all. By the time I arrived, the mansion was already packed to the rafters. At the banquet, Xiaosheng was the center of attention, composing poetry and debating scholars with unrestrained abandon. Everyone else responded with fine verses and eloquent words, while I sat below, clapping and cheering incessantly. Xiaosheng slipped over to me, pressing his temples. "Stop that," he whispered. "You're making this lord look like a storyteller. Here, the back courtyard has plenty of tea and snacks. Go enjoy yourself there." I was actually tired of the noise anyway, so I happily went off to snack. Later, while they painted in the garden, I sat at the back drawing turtles. The other girls' paintings were all quite good, but I didn't think mine was any worse. I picked up my painting, feeling rather pleased with myself. What a thoroughly satisfying contest it had been. The first day of the 3rd month arrived, just 2 days before the imperial spring examinations. When Sister Qin came to visit, she casually mentioned making a felt hat for her brother to keep him warm. Then she asked me, "Huizhou, aren't you going to make something for your brother?" I shook my head. I wasn't close to my brother anyway. If he truly needed something, Qing Huabi would make it for him. Why should I get involved? But Xiaosheng was also taking the spring exams. This was my chance to make an impression. Making one now was too late. I had to buy one. No sooner said than done. That evening, cloaked against the wind, I delivered the felt hat to Xiaosheng's hands. A late spring chill had swept in, turning the weather bitterly cold. The streets were nearly deserted. Xiaosheng took the hat, raising an eyebrow. You're quite thoughtful. Did you make this yourself? I smiled faintly. Yes. I've been thinking about you preparing for the exams and worried you'd be cold. I worked day and night to finish it in time. Xiaosheng examined the felt hat closely. The design is quite unique. And the craftsmanship is good. It's just that the material is a bit lacking. If it were made with fox fur, it would be warmer. Still, I don't mind. He cradled the hat in his arms, glanced at me, and let a smile touch his lips. Just then, a peddler pushed a cart past, hawking felt hats. Felt hats. Top quality rabbit fur felt hats. Cheap to sell. Xiaosheng froze, glancing at the vendor's hat then back at his own. His hand trembled with anger. You dare try to fool this lord with this? What? I don't understand. It's getting late. Wishing you success on the imperial exams, sir. I curtsied and dashed off. A month passed in the blink of an eye. On the day the results were posted, Qinyuer and I squeezed through the crowd, scanning the list for names. My brother passed. Qinyuer gasped, glancing back a few rows before shaking me urgently. Huanzhu. Your brother passed too. Yeah, I saw. Whether Qing Wanbi's brother passed or not didn't matter to me. My eyes were fixed on Xiaosheng's name at the top of the list. My heart finally settling. Just as I was about to leave, I turned back as if compelled by some unseen force. I scanned the entire list of 400 names from top to bottom, then bottom to top. I wanted to find Xie Huizhou's name, but he wasn't on the list. I searched over and over. Yet he wasn't there. He had failed the examination. People around me were murmuring. The jade-faced gentleman topped the list. How impressive. What's so surprising about that? It would be strange if he didn't top it. The Xie family's young master isn't on the list. How bizarre. He was renowned throughout the southern counties at 9, and everyone said he was no less than the jade-faced gentleman. Who would have thought he'd fail? A fame hunter. Look at him all these years. Has he ever written a single good poem? The mocking words stung like needles. Unable to bear it, I turned to leave, but then spotted the Xie family's carriage in the distance. I didn't see Xie Huizhou, but I knew he must be inside. A servant ran over and whispered something beneath the window. The curtain inside the carriage was quietly drawn, and soon, the carriage turned and drove away. It felt like a hand had clenched my heart, squeezing it so tightly I couldn't breathe. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I'd always despised that cripple. Yet now, seeing him fail the exams, I felt strangely unsettled. On my way home, I spotted Xiaosheng, seated in his family carriage. He looked radiant and full of spirit, flashing me a smile. My heart felt heavy. I merely nodded before turning away. The next morning at breakfast, Father suddenly remarked, I hear Xie's young master has enlisted in the army. It struck me like thunder. My whole body trembled in disbelief. What? But he's a scholar. And still, a cripple, for that matter. Indeed. Who could have foreseen it? Rumors abound that Xie Huizhou was driven to this by the shock of failing the imperial examinations. I bit my lip hard. My fingers clenched until they turned white. Still, I couldn't fathom how his fate could shift so drastically in this lifetime. Could it be? Because of those words I spoke to him. I gripped my chopsticks so tightly my knuckles turned white. A pang of regret washing over me. I shouldn't have said those things. Truthfully, even without pursuing scholarly honors, Xie Huizhou could have lived a simple, contented life. Nothing wrong with that. Now he's enlisted in the army, facing who knows what dangers. This time, I was wrong. On the third day, the entire Qing household traveled to Nanshan Temple to observe a vegetarian fast and fulfill a vow. Before the imperial examinations, the matriarch had made a vow before the Buddha. Now that my brother had passed with distinction, it was only right to fulfill that promise. On the way, I shared a carriage with the Lady Qing and Qing Huanbi. She held Huanbi's hand as they spoke, treating me as if I were invisible. Only as we approached the temple did she turn to me with a cold expression. You've always been ill-mannered, and I've turned a blind eye, choosing not to confront you. But Nanshan Temple is a sacred place of Buddhism. You'd best not cause trouble, or I won't let you off lightly. I pressed my lips together and smiled. Very well, mother. She disliked being called mother, yet couldn't fault the term. Her face darkened as she entered the temple. Nanshan Temple nestled deep within the mountains, serene and tranquil, yet bustling with devotees. Many pilgrims like us had come to fulfill their vows. My father and brother stayed only one night. With official duties awaiting them, they returned to the capital of Jin ahead of schedule, promising to come back for us in 10 days. On the third night, unable to sleep, I wandered alone until I found myself in the unguarded main hall. The Buddha statue stood dignified and solemn, inspiring deep reverence. I approached, lit a stick of incense, pressed my palms together, and made 3 devout wishes. First, may my mother's soul find peace and be reborn into a good family. Second, may I marry a suitable husband in this life and never again have to endure others' disdain. Third, I opened my eyes and gazed into the Buddha's compassionate eyes. My third wish, may Xie Huizhou find peace and prosperity. His life fulfilled. I knelt and bowed my head. Just as I was about to rise, I suddenly heard a pilgrim's shriek from the rear courtyard, followed by the deafening clamor of combat. My mind went blank for a moment before I realized trouble had struck. I rushed out of the hall to find bandits armed with knives storming into Nanshan Temple from the rear mountain. Monks were fighting back with sticks, while pilgrims burst from rooms, fleeing in all directions amid utter chaos. Who would have thought the sacred Buddhist sanctuary would fall prey to bandits? Several figures sprinted past me, and I instinctively followed their lead. Then, I heard wails. It was a group of female pilgrims being dragged along. I hesitated for a moment, but finally stopped, rushed back to the main hall, grabbed the bronze demon subduing staff nearby, and charged forward. Having grown up in the city streets, I'd been beaten countless times as a child for stealing food. That training had made me agile and tough. Clutching the 40-pound demon-subduing staff, I could kill several bandits with wild blows. But the situation was dire, and I only managed to save 2 people. Fortunately, the monks held them off up ahead, allowing us to escape safely. Led by a young novice monk, our group fled down the mountain under cover of night, hiding in a cave concealed behind a waterfall. Several bandits pursued us but failed to find our hiding place, so they turned back. The First Lady, rescued by someone unknown, was also crammed into our shelter. Her hair was disheveled, her face streaked with tears. She wept until she nearly fainted, muttering, "My Huanbi has been abducted. I must find Huanbi." I had to cover her mouth to prevent her cries from drawing the bandits closer. The night was as black as ink. The temple echoed with the clamor of battle, waves of agonized screams reaching the mountain's base. Even the deafening roar of the waterfall couldn't fully drown them out. We were all soaked to the bone, cold and terrified, huddled together, barely daring to breathe. This group, except for the young monk who led us, consisted entirely of women, with their lives hanging by a thread. Even the most composed ladies trembled with fear. The First Lady huddled beside me, stifling her sobs, her fingers clutching the hem of my robe. I sighed inwardly, never imagining that in such peril, I would find myself huddled with the First Lady. After an unknown length of time, the mountain grew quiet. The young monk who led us into the cave ventured out to scout and informed us that the bandits had mostly finished their plundering and fled deeper into the mountains. We dared not return to the temple rashly. Our only option was to leave the cave swiftly and seek refuge in the nearest village. Everyone agreed. Only the First Lady, crying herself into a daze, kept pleading with me. We can't leave. Huanbi was taken. Huizhou, please. Let's go find her. She might still be at the temple. You're so skilled you can save others. So please save your sister too. Mother, we don't know if bandits still lurk in the temple. Are you trying to send me to my death? I shook her off and tried to follow the others. She lunged at me again, clutching me tightly, kneeling and pleading. Huizhou, I beg you, save Huanbi. Her heartbreaking sobs stripped away the former dignity of the Qing family matriarch, once aloof and commanding, leaving only a pitiful, forlorn figure. Like a drowned rat, the young monk had already set off toward the main road. The others dared not delay for us too and followed him. Only the First Lady and I remained before the cave entrance. I had never been so close to her as I was today. I looked up the mountain. The bandits had set fire, and the temple was already ablaze. The billowing black smoke, like a monstrous beast, stared at me. After a long silence, I sighed and looked at the First Lady. Mother, you always scorned me as coarse and uncultured. Did you ever imagine the day would come when you'd kneel before me, begging me to save your daughter? She pleaded urgently for me to save Qing Huanbi. Heedless of my mockery, tears streamed down her face as she spoke in a mournful voice. I was wrong. Huizhou, I treated you badly. My death is no loss. But Huanbi is a good child. She never once spoke ill of you in my presence. My stepmother never spoke ill of you either. Yet you still caused her death. She froze, releasing my hand, as if unable to believe I would say such things. So you've always hated me because you think I caused your stepmother's death. How could you possibly believe that? I never troubled you back then. I found it laughable. Never troubled us. You abandoned us in a drafty hovel. Neglected us completely. Forbade father from bringing us back to the manor. Let us suffer every humiliation. Let my stepmother die of illness in that shack. Have you forgotten everything you did? Then what more do you want from me? Furious and humiliated, she broke down. She was my dowry maid, the one I trusted most. Yet while I was pregnant, she crawled into my husband's bed. What did you expect me to do to her? Do you have any idea how many times I wished her dead? I could have easily fabricated charges, sent her to the authorities, and ended her life. But I didn't. Out of pity for our former master-servant bond, one spared her and gave her a place to live. Wasn't that enough kindness? I once thought the First Lady at least understood her own cruelty. But in her heart, she still sees herself as merciful. It seems I'm the ungrateful one. I shook my head in utter disappointment. Madam, you know perfectly well my stepmother was timid and fearful, utterly loyal to you. She would never have dared seduce my father. She was a helpless woman. Could she have resisted if my father desired her? Have you ever considered who truly wronged you? You always accused me of being ill-bred, of rebelling against you. True. I harbor hostility toward you, but my defiance isn't for myself, it's for my stepmother's sake. All those years in the small courtyard, she missed you every single day. She said she followed you when she was 6. You taught her to read and write, showed her how to make tea. In spring, you'd go out to the fields together to dig wild greens and play house. In winter, you'd huddle together at the bedside doing needlework. She always kept saying how sorry she was to you, though she was the one most wronged. She begged your forgiveness daily. My stepmother was such a kind soul. Yet you dismissed her as a seductress who lured away husbands. You refused to see her, refused to hear her words, let alone defend her. Do you deserve her devotion? Madam, perhaps these words finally shook her awake. She remembered that many years ago, she and my stepmother had been the closest of sisters. The First Lady stared at me blankly. trembling all over. She had no rebuttal. After a moment, her body collapsed like a sand pile, and she knelt on the ground. No. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. Her voice choked to silence, covering her face. She wept until she was a heap of mud. I looked at her, took a deep breath to steady myself, then turned my gaze toward the temple. In the end, I picked up the demon-subduing staff beside me and began walking up the mountain. Perhaps Xie Huizhou really was still inside. The temple was already engulfed in flames. If she was inside, wouldn't she burn alive? I held my breath and crept closer to the temple. The temple was consumed by fire, the acrid smell of burning wafting through the air. At the main gate, a gaunt bandit was picking through a corpse, even pulling silver teeth from its mouth. After observing for a long time, I was certain he was alone. Only then did I approach him from behind. The crackling of burning wood muffled my footsteps. The man remained completely unaware of the danger behind him. I gripped the demon-subduing staff tightly, ready to strike him down in one blow. At that very moment, an arrow whistled through the air, piercing the bandit's body clean through. Startled, I darted behind a stone lion statue. Peering through the cracks, I saw a squad of Imperial guards sprinting toward the temple. At their head was Xie Huizhou, his white robe stained with blood, his expression grim. He stepped into the firelight. "Who's there? Come out!" someone shouted. I tossed aside the demon-subduing staff and stepped out. Xie Huizhou froze. "Miss Cheng." He strode toward me, yet halted abruptly a foot away. His gaze, like a taut string finally slackening. "I'm so relieved you're unharmed." For a fleeting moment, I even imagined, could he remember me too? Before I could ponder further, another question surfaced. Wait, why isn't his leg limping? I never expected to encounter Xie Huizhou here. He said he and a group of brothers-in-arms heading north had stumbled upon a band of bandits who had plundered treasures and abducted women. They charged out and surrounded the raiders. Among the women, Xie Huizhou found Xie Huizhou. She cried as she told him that I and the First Lady were still at the temple. He rushed here without a moment's delay. As for his leg, he showed me a strange iron plate wrapped around his calf. A fellow soldier had made it for him. The man was always ing with odd contraptions. After examining Xie's leg, he crafted this device. Though cumbersome, it at least allowed normal walking. While we spoke, the soldiers entered the temple and found two pilgrims still alive. After they emerged, I led them to reunite with the First Lady and those who had fled to the village. By dawn, all survivors were accounted for. The First Lady and Xie Huizhou clung to each other, weeping uncontrollably. A woman nearby told her relatives, "We all thought we were going to die." But then that young master suddenly charged out. I thought a divine being had appeared. It's strange when he came out. The wolves in the mountains came out too, but they only attacked the bandits, not us. Don't you think it was the Buddha manifesting? It was indeed bizarre. Hearing her say this, I still found it hard to believe. This incarnation of Xie Huizhou was truly unlike any other. After a while, Xie Huizhou dispatched men to send word back to the Jin capital. He and a dozen others escorted us as we slowly made our way back. The others, all slightly injured, sat on ox carts borrowed from local farmers. I was unharmed, so I walked slowly behind the carts alongside Xie Huizhou. A sliver of sunlight broke through the horizon, filtering through the forest mist and falling in strands upon our shoulders. The journey passed in silence. I glanced at Xie Huizhou several times before finally gathering the courage to speak. Xie Huizhou. This spring examination. I didn't finish, but he knew what I meant to say and interrupted. I don't mind failing the spring examinations. Miss Cheng, there's no need to console me. Then why did you suddenly decide to enlist? He smiled faintly. When one path is blocked, I thought I'd try another. Didn't you once say that a true man, without official rank, cannot protect those he cherishes? I looked up at him. He didn't notice my gaze. His eyes fixed on the road ahead, utterly focused. I thought, his mind must be on that special someone right now. For some reason, I suddenly felt a strong desire to meet her. What kind of person is she? I asked. Who? You know, the girl you admire. Xie Huizhou paused, his eyes flickering. He gave a sheepish smile. Oh. Her. She's a very good person. He offered no further description. Just 2 words. Very good. Perhaps that's how it is when you like someone, you can't pinpoint exactly what's good about her. But she simply is. I lowered my eyes and smiled. All right then. I wish you that lovers will eventually be united. Thank you. His voice was soft, almost lost in the wind. You're a wonderful person too. You'll find a wonderful match. I wanted to smile, but somehow I felt a pang of melancholy instead. We both had bright futures ahead. I should have been happy. Yet deep inside, a part of me suddenly felt empty. We were still 2 li from the capital of Jin when the sound of galloping hooves echoed ahead. Several carriages approached us, family members who had received word and come to fetch us. After returning home, the First Lady fell ill. According to the servants, she suffered nightly convulsions, always waking from her sleep in sudden, wailing cries. One midnight, the household staff suddenly heard her arguing with my father. None could make out the words, but they saw my father emerge from the bedroom with a face as pale as iron. Retreating alone to sleep in the study, he never returned to the bedroom after that. After my return to the Qing residence, Xiaosheng sent word several times, inquiring after my well-being and suggesting I visit him at the crane viewing tower if I felt like playing chess. I should have responded, but with so much happening lately, I simply couldn't muster the energy and brushed off each message. Yet Xiaosheng himself came to my home. He claimed it was because he'd heard my aunt had been startled, and his mother was deeply concerned. So she'd sent him to check on me. This made no sense whatsoever. Xiaosheng's mother didn't even know the First Lady. Why would she send him to visit? His sudden appearance left everyone baffled. The servants in the mansion began speculating whether the Yan family was plotting a rebellion, trying to draw the Qing family into their scheme. The day he came, I was sunbathing outside my own room. After paying a perfunctory visit to the First Lady, he wandered over to my quarters. When I opened my eyes and saw him, I startled, thinking I was dreaming. Xiaosheng. He stood there like a proud rooster, reproaching me. Well, when you came to me pitifully before, you called me my lord. Now, after a few days apart, you've grown distant and call me Xiaosheng. I sighed, unable to muster a smile. He didn't even bother to approach, merely stating, seeing you still alive puts my mind at ease. I asked him, did you come specifically to see me? He scoffed. Don't flatter yourself. I'm merely here at my mother's command to check on the sick. I happened to see you while walking and thought I'd say hello. Fine. I couldn't be bothered to reply. Turning my head to stare blankly at the newly sprouted trees, Xiaosheng stood for a moment before murmuring softly, don't shut yourself up at home and get sick from it. When you have time, go out for walks. The weather's been lovely lately, don't waste the springtime. Such a gentle voice made me think I'd misheard. I looked up at him, but he quickly resumed his haughty demeanor. This lord has many matters to attend to. I must be going. Perhaps because the weather had improved. The First Lady's illness gradually eased. She no longer lay bedridden, though her spirit remained far weaker than before. She would sit beneath the crabapple tree in front of the house, often for an entire day, lost in thoughts no one could fathom. Qing Huanbi came to see me once, asking if I had spoken to the First Lady. I merely smiled. Sister, how could I possibly speak with the lady? She pondered this, realizing it was true, and departed with a heavy heart. Half a month later, my birthday arrived. Only when Chen Yuer's carriage pulled up before our gate did I recall the occasion. I knew your family would surely forget your birthday, she said. I specially reserved a table at Fumanlu to celebrate your longevity. Sister Qin, you're so kind, I said, throwing my arms around her. We'd met 3 years prior. I couldn't recall how it happened, but we'd taken an instant liking to each other, like two turtles gazing at mung beans. Since then, we'd often sought each other out to play. Fumanlu was the most renowned restaurant in the capital of Jin. I'd heard their chefs were among the finest in the land. Today, it wasn't just Qin Yuer. Other young ladies had come to keep me company too. We chatted for ages before all the dishes finally arrived. Maybe I wasn't in the mood, but I didn't feel like eating anything. Seeing this, Qin Yuer picked up a pig's trotter. Huanzhu, this is delicious. Try some. How could you celebrate your birthday without eating piggy? I obediently took a bite. Honestly, this flavor everyone raves about in Jindu, not that great. Qin Yuer, however, found it quite tasty, murmuring her praise as she chatted with me about everything under the sun. Eventually, the conversation circled back to Xie Huizhou. He's really hit the jackpot. Word of his recent campaign against bandits reached the emperor's ears. His Majesty summoned him to the palace immediately to bestow rewards. I heard he received a whole chest of gold. He's become quite the rising star. Just the other day, people were lining up to host banquets for him, and now, the emperor has appointed him a captain to pacify the northern commandery. I believe he's setting off today. After that last time, I never saw Xie Huizhou again. Only through others' words did I hear scattered bits of news about him. When I heard he'd been made a military commander, I assumed he'd stay in the Jin capital. I never imagined he'd go to the northern commandery. That place has never been peaceful. Who knows what hell faced there? I drifted off in thought, barely catching what Zhao Yuer said afterward. I just sat there, occasionally offering a polite smile, barely touching my food. After a while, a waiter from Fumanlu suddenly approached carrying a bowl of noodles. He placed it before me, smiling broadly as he said, "We heard it's your birthday tonight, miss. Fumanlu specially presents you with this bowl of longevity noodles. Wishing you a joyous birthday." Without much thought, I thanked him. When I reached for my purse to tip him, the waiter waved his hands hastily. No, no, no. The noodles are complimentary. No need for a tip, miss. With that, he swiftly descended the stairs. This Fu Manlu is quite decent. Seeing this, Qin Yuer pushed the bowl toward me and smiled. Huizhou, take a bite. I had little appetite, but to avoid offending her, I lowered my head and took a bite. The moment my tongue touched the noodles, my entire body trembled. The flavor felt so familiar, as if I'd tasted it somewhere before. I stared at the bowl in astonishment, yet my mind was a fog. I couldn't recall where. Where had I eaten this before? That night, I had a dream. When I awoke, my pillow was soaked with tears, but I couldn't remember a single detail of what I'd dreamt. The next day, an invitation arrived at our home. It was from the elderly matriarch of the Yen family, who had enclosed a plot of land south of the city for a polo match and invited us to attend. Qing Huanbi accepted the invitation, but I declined. I hadn't been feeling well these past few days, as listless as a frostbitten eggplant. Unexpectedly, that very afternoon, Xiaosheng came to visit the First Lady again. I happened to be leaving just then and ran into him. He stopped me and asked, "Qing Huanzhu, why did you decline the polo invitation?" Lacking energy, I kicked pebbles with my foot. "Am not in the mood. Didn't feel like going." He crossed his arms, raising an eyebrow. "Truly not going. The 59 before you all intend to attend. If you don't try, how can you win this lord's heart?" "What? 59 others ahead of me? That's impossible. I can't beat them, and I don't want to go." I turned to leave. "Hold on." He grabbed my arm and spoke slowly. "How about this? Tomorrow, if you win a single game, they'll come to propose marriage. What do you say?" Haven't you always wanted to be my main wife? This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. My heart skipped a beat. All those months of effort wasn't it for this very moment. Just one victory. Seriously. That simple. Xiaosheng looked at me, seeming almost relieved. Seriously. A gentleman's word is as good as 4 horses pulling a chariot. On the day of the polo match, crowds indeed gathered. Rumor had it even Princess Anil, long absent from the capital, had come. The moment Qing Huanbi stepped from her carriage, Pei Jing of the loyal and valiant Marquis mansion approached. His gaze was fervent as he looked at her. Miss Qing, I haven't seen you in days. When I heard you were in danger last time, I was terribly worried. By the way, did you like the fox fur coat I sent you the day before yesterday? That fox was hunted by me personally. Qing Huanbi chatted with him, her face flushed, clearly quite pleased with him. Her luck truly was extraordinary in her previous life. She had Su Qingfeng. In this one, Pei Jing. I sighed and went off to play with Sister Chen. Today's polo match offered a night pearl as the prize. Xiaosheng wouldn't take the field. As the host, it wouldn't be proper for him to compete against others. Besides, he disliked games that left one drenched in sweat. In the end, I teamed up with Qin Yuer, Su Qingfeng, Qin Rumu, and others. Qing Huanbi and Pei Jing formed their own team. Before the match, Pei Jing was already bragging about winning the night pearl to give to Qing Huanbi. It annoyed me. I wasn't brought back to the Qing family until I was 9. To prevent me from embarrassing them, my father crammed me with tutors teaching reading, playing the qin, and horseback riding. Though I never mastered them, I could still manage to play around. Besides, it was best of 3 sets. He only needed to win one. But I had overestimated myself. Sister Chen and Shinrumo were exceptional riders. Even giving my all, I still held them back, losing both sets. After the second set, rain suddenly began to fall. We had to pause, waiting for it to stop before continuing. Sister Chen and the others didn't blame me. They said it was just a game, and I shouldn't feel guilty. But I felt a bit discouraged. After sitting for a while, I walked gloomily into the woods alone, intending to change clothes. Suddenly, I spotted 2 figures standing beneath the covered bridge. One was Xiaosheng, and the other was none other than the rumored Princess Anil. In the woods, raindrops fell steadily from the leaves, dripping and splashing. Yet their conversation still reached my ears clearly. Xiaosheng toyed with his folding fan, his voice dripping with contempt. Who? Qin Huizhou. She's nothing but a plaything in this lord's hands. A mere distraction to amuse myself and pass the boredom. How could I ever be moved by her? Absolutely laughable. Princess Anil smiled, looking quite pleased. They really did deceive me. I knew Idia could never possibly like that sort of thing. Standing beneath the trees, I felt as if struck by a blow to the head. Yet I wasn't heartbroken. I didn't care whether he liked me or not. As long as he kept his promise if I went around, he would come to propose. I cared about nothing else. But he treated me like a toy to play with. After all my effort, he toyed with me like this. In the distance, faintly, someone seemed to be calling my name. Only then did I notice the rain had stopped. The 2 under the covered bridge seemed to sense something. I bent down and ran swiftly away. Back at the arena, Qing Huabi called out from afar. Hey! Qing Huizhou. Still playing. I clenched my fists. Yes. Why wouldn't I? I wouldn't just win one round, I'd win all 3. Claim the winnings, and then throw them in Xiaosheng's face. I'd show him I didn't care about him at all. With the experience from the first 2 rounds, I was much more skilled by the third. As I mounted my horse, I saw Xiaosheng had returned to the viewing platform. Gripping the reins tightly, I charged into the arena. Fueled by rage, the rain-soaked field was slippery, hindering Qing Huanbi and others who feared falling. But I wasn't afraid. I darted in and out, scoring goal after goal. easily winning the third round. Pei Jing, who had been confident of victory, looked surprised when we won a round. Yet we went on to win the fourth round as well. Soon, the fifth set began. Qing Huanbi's stamina was fading, her movements slowing. I charged ahead, ball in hand, hurtling toward the goal. One more score, and victory was ours. I never imagined anything could go wrong, until Pei Jing's mallet hooked my horse's hind leg. The world spun violently. Horse and rider were flung to the ground. I slammed hard against the ground, while Pei Jing's horse leaped high, its hooves descending toward my body. In that instant, time seemed to stretch painfully slow. I stared at the hooves above me, my mind a deafening roar. Memories flooded in like a wild stallion breaking free, shrieking into my consciousness. Suddenly, I remembered how I had died. The 11th year of my marriage to Xie Huizhou. The first day of the 12th lunar month. We had a terrible fight. For an entire day, I didn't utter a single word to Xie Huizhou. I forbade him from following me, forbade him from appearing within my sight. On the second day of the 12th lunar month, I went out alone to buy rouge. Xie Huizhou, uneasy, followed from a distance, afraid I might notice him. It was bitterly cold that day, with a fine drizzle falling. The streets were sparsely populated. Walking ahead, I had spotted Xie Huizhou long before he noticed me. I wanted him to come under my umbrella, but I couldn't bring myself to ask. As we walked, a horse suddenly charged out from nowhere, heading straight for two children playing in the middle of the street. In that instant, I instinctively lunged forward and pushed them out of the way. But I couldn't save myself. The horse trampled my chest, crushing my bones. In a daze, I heard Xie Huizhou's desperate cry, "Huanzhu." I opened my mouth, but only blood poured out. Not a single word could be formed. That day, Xie Huizhou carried me through the long streets of Jindu, desperately seeking a doctor. Already a cripple, his panic made his limp worse, and he stumbled and fell countless times. But my injuries were too severe, even a god couldn't have saved me. Every clinic shut its doors, too afraid to take me in. In the end, I died. That day, the whole street heard Xie Huizhou's cries. Remembering this, I also recalled that I never truly disliked Xie Huizhou. I actually loved the food he cooked, and I loved him too. I just grew accustomed to teasing him, accustomed to waiting for him to comfort me. I also remembered the words I wanted to tell him before I died, but never managed to say. Xie Huizhou, I said I regretted marrying you. That was a lie. Drops of muddy water splashed onto my face, jolting me awake from my memories. It all happened in the blink of an eye. Above my head, Pei Jing's horse was about to trample me. At the moment of life or death peril, another horse charged from the side, knocking Pei Jing aside and shielding me. It was Su Qingfeng. He stood across from Pei Jing, glaring angrily. Young Marquis, what do you think you're doing? Pei Jing, enraged by humiliation, scrambled up from the mud, wiped the filth from his face, and spat. Who do you think you are, daring to collide with me? At that moment, Qing Huanbi dismounted and rushed over to help me up. She glared at Pei Jing with fury. Pei Jing, it was merely a game. You lost. So what? Why must you risk someone's life over it? Pei Jing stammered. I only wanted to win that night pearl for you, Pa. Your own twisted heart, unable to accept defeat, nearly killed my sister and you used me as an excuse. Disgusting. Qing Huanbi spat at him. She had always been pleased with Pei Jing. Yet at this moment, she stood firmly against him. I stared at her, my mind reeling. Truthfully, Qing Huanbi wasn't entirely bad. In my past life, though she constantly flaunted her achievements and tried to outdo me, she would severely punish the servants who mistreated me. When I argued with her and was punished by the First Lady to copy the admonitions for women, confined to the ancestral hall, she secretly finished the copying for me. Later, when I was trampled by a horse, She was the first to rush to my aid. I smiled softly and whispered, "Qing Huanbi, your illness can actually be cured. If you just stop taking the medicine you're currently on, your body will heal itself." In my previous life, many years later, she met a divine physician. He said her body would have recovered naturally with proper rest and care. Unfortunately, her desperation to find a cure led her to take too many medicines, which only made things worse. Qing Huanbi looked at me in confusion, unsure why I'd suddenly said that. "What are you talking about?" "Never mind. Stop talking for now. Let the doctor check if you're hurt." With that, she helped carry me onto the viewing platform with the others. After examining me, the doctor confirmed I'd only had my hand stepped on and was otherwise unharmed. Qing Huanbi finally relaxed. While the physician bandaged my wound, she turned to Su Qingfeng beside her and said, "Thank you, young master, for saving my sister." Su Qingfeng smiled. "No need for thanks. Anyone would have stepped forward in such a situation." Qing Huanbi asked him, "May I inquire about your name?" "I am Su Qingfeng, Su of Breeze like Su Qingfeng." Su Qingfeng. The Su Qingfeng who placed second in the imperial examinations. How embarrassing. How embarrassing. It is indeed I. You're truly remarkable. Qing Huanbi looked at him, praising him repeatedly. Truly. Such scholarly prowess and such integrity. People like you are rare these days. Flattery. Flattery. Su Qingfeng's face flushed crimson. "Miss Cheng, please stop praising me. I truly feel ashamed." Watching them from the sidelines, I let out a quiet sigh. Oh dear. Oh dear. They've locked eyes again. Come to think of it, I wonder if Su Qingfeng ever found his fan after I tricked him last time. But it doesn't matter. He doesn't need a fan anymore. A crowd gathered around me. Xiaosheng pushed through from the back, crouching before me. His voice trembled slightly. "Huanzhu, how are you?" I looked at him, a mocking smile curving my lips. "Just a trifle in the palm of one's hand. Not worth your concern." "My lord." He froze, his face turning instantly ashen. After my hand was bandaged, Qing Huanbi and Su Qingfeng insisted on escorting me home, but I decided not to return. "Qing Huanbi, tell my family not to look for me. I'll come back." Snatching a swift horse, I galloped north amid their startled cries. I was going to find Xie Huizhou. My memories from my previous life returned, and I finally understood why the taste of that longevity noodle bowl felt so familiar, because in my past life, I had eaten it every single day. That bowl of noodles was made by Xie Huizhou. It wasn't just me who had been reborn. He had too. Only, he had always believed I despised him, too afraid to reveal himself to me. Yet, silently, he had always stood guard behind me. I galloped onward. The closer I got to the northern border, the more desolate the landscape became on either side of the road. That afternoon, 10 miles from Beijing, I encountered a group of local ruffians. Then I witnessed an astonishing sight. A pack of wolves charging down the mountain, savagely attacking the ruffians, yet leaving me untouched. In that moment, I felt perhaps there truly were gods in this world. My resolve strengthened. I dared not linger, urging my horse onward. At dusk, we finally entered the city. The northern commandery had recently endured turmoil. Its people had starved for an agonizingly long time. Yet not a single grain of the relief rice promised by the court had materialized. The starving masses were filled with grievances, clamoring to tear down the commandery governor's mansion and march on the capital of Jin. A riot seemed imminent. My heart tightened, and I hurried to follow them. Before the prefectural governor's mansion, Xie Huizhou stood at the gate, loudly speaking to calm the starving crowd. But those people were driven mad by hunger. They wouldn't listen to a word, surrounding him with insults. Some even tried to attack. I snatched a wood-cutting knife from someone nearby, pushed through the crowd, and stood before Xie Huizhou. "Back off. Anyone who dares come near, I'll chop them into mincemeat." The blade in my hand served as a deterrent. The crowd hesitantly retreated 2 steps, no longer daring to advance. Xie Huizhou stared at me in shock. "Miss Cheng, how could you?" I turned to face him. "You crippled bastard. What are you playing at?" His body stiffened. After a moment, he finally seemed to grasp something. "Could it be that you too? If you can do it, why can't I?" A long silence followed. He sighed softly. "Huizhou, why did you have to come?" My appearance finally calmed the crowd gathered before the prefect's residence for a brief moment. Xie Huizhou seized the moment to patiently urge them to wait a little longer. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, though her clothes were tattered. They couldn't hide her clear beauty. She said that when other officials came before, they always hid behind a crowd of soldiers, standing high above the people. Only Xie Huizhou stood among them without any protection, speaking to them as equals. She believed he couldn't be the kind of corrupt official who embezzled relief grain. She spoke at length, though merely an uneducated fish seller. Her words carried more weight than those of many literati. By the end of her speech, she had truly persuaded the crowd. The starving people's anger subsided for the moment, and the prefectural office was spared from being torn down. That night, Xie Huizhou took all the grain stored in the office, cooked it into a large pot, and distributed it to the starving people. The next day, the imperial relief grain arrived safely, and the crisis in North Commandery was finally averted. Yet Xie Huizhou began avoiding me. He feared I was merely acting on impulse and wanted to send me back to the Jin capital. He said that following him would bring much hardship, and he might not even secure promotion in the future. He didn't want to see me regret it again. But that night, when I stood before his door, shedding 2 tears, and said, "Xie Huizhou, I want to eat noodles," he dropped his guard, and I finally uttered the words I couldn't say in my previous life. "Xie Huizhou, when I said I regretted marrying you that day, I was lying. I don't regret it at all. I'm truly fortunate to have married you." After the situation in Beijing stabilized, Xie Huizhou brought me back to the Jin capital. That day, he formally proposed to my father. My father had already intended to betroth me to him. Now that Xie Huizhou had taken the initiative, he was overjoyed and immediately agreed. Still, one thing is one thing. My unauthorized trip to North Command had broken household rules, and I was punished with a month's confinement. Not long after I returned home, Xiaosheng unexpectedly came to the estate looking for me. This time, he didn't enter the house. He stood outside the side gate, waiting for me to come out. I had no idea what he wanted this time, nor did I care. I simply sent someone to tell him I was already betrothed and he should not come looking for me again. When the maid went out, Xiaosheng stepped forward, seemingly eager to hear what she had to say. After she finished, however, his face paled, and he frantically sought confirmation. After receiving the answer, he stood motionless for a long while. Then, that arrogant man actually bowed, offering a respectful salute to the maid and entrusting her with a message. Then he walked toward the carriage parked nearby. Perhaps because of the rain, the path was slippery, and he stumbled. He quickly scrambled to his feet, gave a self-deprecating chuckle, and strode briskly into the carriage before departing. After the maid returned, I asked her, "What did he say to you?" She scratched her head and replied, "He said, to have a friend like you is a blessing for 3 lifetimes. I wish you well, a friend." Wasn't I merely a plaything in his hands, watching the carriage depart gracefully in the distance? I couldn't fathom what he was truly thinking, but it didn't matter anymore. He and I would likely never meet again. Xie Huizhou and I were married that late summer day. The following spring, Qing Huanbi and Su Qingfeng also wed. Everything unfolded exactly as it had in my previous life, until several months later, when my father suddenly fell gravely ill and passed away. I felt no particular attachment to him, so grief did not touch me. It just felt strange in my past life. He had clearly outlived me. No sooner had my father's funeral concluded than the first lady fell gravely ill. Xie Huizhou sought doctors everywhere. Yet nothing could cure her. Day by day, she grew weaker, her life ebbing away. In my previous life, she passed away on the Mid-Autumn Festival. This life, she departed on that very same day. The difference was this. In this life, as she lay dying, she clutched Xie Huizhou's hand, handed her a box, and tearfully said, "Give it to Nanshan." Nanshan was my stepmother's name. That small box contained the dowry she had prepared for my stepmother years ago. Xie Huizhou gave the box to me. I opened it to find silver notes and land deeds inside, a great many, equal to Xie Huizhou's own dowry. All grievances and grudges finally dissolved. A boulder that had weighed on my heart for years now floated away like a feather. After settling the matriarch's funeral, a puppy suddenly appeared at our home, plump and white, utterly adorable. I hadn't felt such pure joy in ages. Holding the little dog, I couldn't bear to let go. Xie Huizhou asked me, "Do you like dogs?" I replied, "Of course. Dogs are so adorable. You know, I once had a dog too. His name was Xiaobai. He was pure white and sturdy, looking incredibly majestic. You wouldn't believe how smart he was if he were human. He could have been a general." My eyes dimmed. Unfortunately, he passed away later. Xie Huizhou fell silent for a moment before saying, "Then shall we take this puppy home?" I stroked the dog's head and shook mine. If Little White knew I had another dog, he'd think I didn't love him anymore. He was my one and only dog. I'd never get another. Give it to Xie Huizhou. The first lady passed away, and she's been so down lately. A dog might cheer her up. Come on. I thought it was a great idea and started carrying the dog to find her. I glanced back at Xie Huizhou, and he was smiling. "What are you laughing at?" Happiness nearly overflowed from his eyes. Seeing the mistress so delighted, how could I not smile? Xie Huizhou. Side story. When Xie Huizhou was 6, she rescued a lone white wolf. Its leg was injured, and it was weak and exhausted. Xie Huizhou asked it, little doggy, what happened to you?" The wolf bared its teeth. "I'm a wolf, not some little dog." Xie Huizhou couldn't understand. She dragged it home, hid it behind the house, and secretly tended to it, having watched her wet nurse bandage her own wounds. She mimicked her mother's movements to dress the wolf's injuries. The pain made it bare its fangs and growl at her. She snapped back fiercely. "I saved you out of kindness. Why are you being so vicious?" With that, she bound its mouth shut with a cloth strip. The wolf accepted its fate and stopped struggling. Back then, Xie Huizhou and her mother lived in a dilapidated courtyard on the city outskirts. Their days were lean, barely scraping by on coarse grains and vegetables, barely enough to fill their bellies. Even so, she secretly saved bits of food each day for the white wolf, feeding him these daily scraps. He slowly recovered, only his leg never fully healed, leaving him slightly lame. But it didn't matter, had 4 legs. Day after day, Xie Huizhou cared for him, and he grew to like this human child just a little. Seeing her made him happy, and he let out a couple of howls. Xie Huizhou was startled and corrected him. "How dare you howl like that? Don't you know how to bark? Watch me, woof woof. White wolf. How dare you? I am White Wolf, the forest god, the supreme ruler of the wolf clan." Xie Huizhou stroked his head. "Good boy. Follow my lead, woof woof. White wolf. Fine. Fine." He opened his mouth. Woof woof. And he never managed to change it back. Xie Huizhou decided to give him a name. "How about Little White?" White Wolf scoffed. "Humph. Who wants a name like that?" Xie Huizhou waved her little hand. "Little White. Come here." White Wolf hurried over. Coming. Coming." He was startled by his own reaction. Oh no. He really had become a dog. Truthfully, White Wolf had considered returning to the forest. That day, had already run to Li when he heard Xie Huizhou crying out for him. Sighing, he trotted back home. After that, he never ran away again. But life was unbearably hard. All year round, they could only scrape by on thin soup and meager rations. Sometimes they had to steal food. The girl and the wolf endured countless beatings just to get something to eat. Back then, Xie Huizhou's sole wish in life was to grow up and eat well every single meal. 3 years of frugal living passed like this. When Xie Huizhou turned 9, her mother suddenly passed away from illness. She was taken back to the Qing residence. But the Qing family had no place for the white wolf. They drove him away. That very night, the white wolf fell into a human trap, his body pierced by wooden spikes. He heard Xie Huizhou's sobs, knowing she had come to find him, yet he could not respond. When he awoke, he had become Xie Huizhou. Soul and flesh merged, and all the original owner's memories flooded into his mind. He could no longer tell whether he was the white wolf or Xie Huizhou. After regaining consciousness, he tried to stand, but his left leg throbbed with unbearable pain. The man before him, who called himself his father, explained that the injury resulted from a fall from his horse. Xie Huizhou looked down at his deformed leg and began to doubt whether his transformation into a white wolf had been merely a dream. Months passed, and Xie Huizhou's body fully recovered except for his left leg. It was said a bone had fractured there, leaving it permanently crippled. Another change had occurred. Before the fall, he had been renowned as a prodigy in the southern commandery. After the accident, his genius vanished. He could no longer effortlessly compose masterpieces as he once did. Even ordinary writings now felt obscure and difficult to grasp. His father noticed these changes and couldn't help but feel disappointed. Yet he comforted his son, saying that having his life spared was already a blessing from the gods. For the future, he only wished for his son to live out his days safely and peacefully. When Xie Huizhou turned 17, his father was promoted, and the entire family moved back to the capital of Jin. 7 years passed, and he had long forgotten that absurd dream, becoming entirely Xie Huizhou. Until that flower festival, when he encountered Xie Huizhou once more. Even after 7 years, he would never mistake that person. She had appeared countless times in his dreams. His heart raced, yet he forced himself to suppress his emotions. Sending someone to inquire about her identity, the messenger reported that the young lady was Xie Huizhou, the secondary daughter of the Qing family. Aged 16, she had been raised elsewhere since birth and only brought back to the Qing residence at 9. Everything matched. It wasn't a dream. This person had truly existed in his life. After that, he began deliberately drawing near her, making an impression, and constantly appearing before her father. Half a year later, they were betrothed. Xie Huizhou never forgot her dream, to eat well every single meal. So before their wedding, he began learning to cook. If she loved eating, he would cook delicious meals for her for the rest of her life, to ensure she ate well every single meal. Extra. Yan Xiaosheng. What Yan Xiaosheng hadn't anticipated was that Princess Annel would attend the polo match that day. In her fiefdom, she was notorious for bullying men and oppressing women. Rumors claimed she was intensely jealous last year. She'd taken a fancy to a scholar, only to drown a girl in the river because the scholar had once complimented her. This time, back in the capital, Princess Annel seemed to have set her sights on Yan Xiaosheng. She schemed to get close to him, probing his preferences. When he went to change clothes, she waited by the covered bridge and asked if he liked Xie Huizhou. Yan Xiaosheng wasn't afraid of a princess, but he feared she might lose her mind and harm Xie Huizhou. He could only play along and brush her off, for now she wouldn't be staying in the capital long anyway. So he said, Xie Huizhou was merely a plaything for his amusement. He had never truly cared for her. He never imagined those words would reach Xie Huizhou's ears. During the final round of the polo match, Xie Huizhou was injured. Rushing to her side, he heard her say, "A mere plaything isn't worth your concern." My lord. His mind went blank. No wonder Xie had suddenly begun fighting desperately from the third round onward. Xie had been wounded by those words. He wanted to explain, but Princess Annel stood nearby, silencing him. Later, when he sought her out, she had vanished from Jin capital. The Qing family refused to reveal her whereabouts. Half a month later, he heard Xie Huizhou had returned. Without delay, he rushed to find her, only to learn she was already betrothed. The suitor was someone he knew, a man of fine character and appearance, from an honorable family, worthy of her trust. Evidently, Qing Wan's feelings for him were no mere game. Xiaosheng had never been one to vie for a woman's affections. He thought, since she was already betrothed, the truth of what had happened back then no longer mattered. He stood at the door for a long time. So many words he wanted to say, yet now felt inappropriate. Finally, with a single phrase, "I wish you well," he gracefully ended this connection. As he left, he stumbled and fell. That fall jolted him awake. When had Xiaosheng become someone lost in romantic entanglements? His ambitions lay in the court and the realm, in the vast expanse of the world. How could trivial romantic affairs cloud his resolve? I ask, what use are you, really? Many years later, he had risen to the position of prime minister. Passing by Crane Watching Tower, he encountered a family of three, hand in hand, their faces radiant with smiles. He felt a moment of disorientation. What if that misunderstanding had never happened back then? Xie Huizhou never knew that even if she hadn't won a single game back then, he would have gone to propose anyway. Had the later upheavals not occurred, the couple holding their child before Crane Watching Tower today would surely be him and Xie Huizhou. Yet upon reflection, he dismissed the thought as impossible. He could never be like Xie Huizhou, devoting his entire heart to his wife and child, accompanying them day after day. Moreover, occupying his lofty position, he must constantly guard against treacherous plots. Many matters were beyond his control. Had Xie Huizhou truly followed him, she might not have enjoyed the carefree life she had today. This brief interlude only momentarily distracted him. Soon, he withdrew his gaze and turned his thoughts to other matters. The imperial court was a sea of shifting currents and treacherous waves. He still had many troubles to resolve. The end.